Over the last year or so, the Debian Linux project has made quite a large number of statements and actions that are absolutely heinous, but they seem to be upping the ante a little bit. On the Debian development mailing list, they have gone ahead and declared, and this is from multiple official Debian developers and contributors, multiple official Debian team members sending emails from Debian.org email accounts stating that the developers of XLibre, the open source fork of the Xorg X11 server, are Nazis and that they will not allow XLibre to be part of Debian. It's a real thing that's happening. I just posted this up on X about an hour or two ago. This is disgusting. This is really, really disgusting. I've reached out to, and I want to make this very clear, I've reached out to the Debian project every possible way there is to reach out to them, and I have not heard any response. That's not unusual. It's only been a few hours since I reached out to them, but honestly, they've never responded to anything in the past. Nothing, no matter how extreme and horrific coming from the Debian project, does the Debian project ever respond to it? Let me read you some of these quotes here. So, the Debian developers declare that XLibre, the open source fork of Xorg, is run by Nazis who, quote, would have sent me to a camp, assuming a concentration camp, were they given the opportunity. Quote, I am not willing to let Debian become a Nazi bar. Hopefully, no Debian developer will upload or sponsor any work of that guy. Assuming they mean the lead developer of XLibre. It should be noted, XLibre is a community project. There are many developers, but there is one guy that started the project. And I want to be completely fair about this. There is one, count them, one Debian developer and contributor, one official guy with a Debian.org email address who spoke up and made it very clear that he didn't exactly love what was going on here. Now, I want to read his statement here because, well, it's the lone voice of reason. Quote, excluding software because of the politics of the developer is both extremely dangerous and contrary to the spirit of the Debian Free Software Guidelines, end quote. So one developer spoke up. Many developers made it very clear that they were not okay with it. Quote, I strongly oppose the inclusion of XLibre or any related tool in Debian, or for what it's worth, the inclusion of anything developed by that team. This is my opinion as a Debian developer. I am not willing to let Debian become a Nazi bar. Hopefully, no Debian developer will upload or sponsor any work of that guy. Another developer chimes in. This is indeed everything that needed to be said here. Thanks for spelling it out. Another developer goes on to say, I'm part of the people the XLibre main developer and their friends would have sent to a camp were they given the opportunity. Now, I just want to make something very, very clear here. To my knowledge, the XLibre team has no actual Nazis on the team. I have not point blank asked them, are you a Nazi? Give me a yes or no answer. But nothing they've ever said would suggest that they're a Nazi, and asking someone that is kind of a jerk thing to do. So I'm just going to let that be. It's also worth noting that they've discussed things with me many times. They've answered many of my questions. The XLibre developers have. I am a very proud and very public Jewish man. And the last time I checked, Nazis aren't a big fan of the Jews. They're just not big fans. And yet all of the people that are being called Nazis here, they sure do seem to like hanging out and talking to me. They sure seem to have no problem discussing things with me. And I've never heard one of them shout, Der Juden, and start ushering me into a camp. Also, I've seen no suggestion that anyone needs to be rounded up and put into concentration camps here from the XLibre team. And again, as someone whose family has actually gone through said things, I find that statement from the Debian developers highly offensive and generally a prick thing to say. Debian should be officially apologizing for basically everything going on here. But this is only really just the surface of the problems going on here with Debian, because I want to point a few things out. Because Debian developers are coming out and saying, we won't include this piece of software because the devs are Nazis, even though they're not. And yet, at the same time, see, do I have this here? Yes, I do. At the same time, a key member of the Debian development team is a registered, convicted child rapist, having been convicted of sexual assault on multiple children, and according to reports, having engaged in thousands of acts of sexual assault. Now, he actually represents the Debian project at conferences put on by the Debian team and foundation, including the DebConf. They send this guy, Jeremy Beecher, to speak for them as recently as, this summer. I'd be very, very clear here. Debian has no problem calling people Nazis. In fact, that child rapist from Debian has specifically in the past also called the XLibre team Nazis, and in fact defaced a wiki page just to vandalize it and include exactly that sort of statement, XLibre devs are Nazis, something along those lines, just a couple of months back. Which is the only reason we even learned that a registered sex offender is representing the Debian project at conferences where children are present, and Debian knows this and never has warned anyone about it. In fact, not only have they not warned anyone about it, Debian and the Debian conference have gone out of their way to ban, silence, and censor anyone who even attempts to warn people about the existence of a registered child sex offender in their midst. Here's screenshots of someone posted of the Debian conference official IRC channel, where boom, people are repeatedly being banned for exactly that. Here's another post that I put up there. Wait a minute, hold on a second. I've got it here. The Debian subreddit, which is moderated in part by the community and in part by the Debian project itself, hides any posts of anyone asking, hey, why is Debian allowing a serial abuser of children to speak at DebConf? They hide all of these posts. They delete them, they censor them, and in fact, they ban people for asking these things. Now, that situation was so extreme and so concerning that Canonical, who had previously employed that registered sex offender, fired him. Once it became public and everyone understood what was going on, they fired him and got rid of him. Debian, however, no. No statement whatsoever. I reached out to Debian back then. I reached out to DebConf. Absolutely no responses at all. So again, Debian is fine with registered sex offenders, fine with child rapists, but if you might vote for the wrong person, they're going to label you a Nazi even when you're not, try and incite violence against you, and refuse to even include your software. How messed up is this? I also want to point out some of the other rather extremely odd things that have been going on with Debian. Excuse me, back in January of this year, the Debian project left X. They stopped going, I have a frog in my throat. This is why you keep a little bit of soda next to you while you're doing a show. That's better. So they left X. The Debian project left X. They made a big statement about how They weren't going to use Debian anymore, the @Debian account over on X. Quote, "The Debian publicity team will no longer post on X/Twitter. We took this decision since we feel X doesn't reflect Debian's shared values as stated in our social contract, code of conduct, and diversity statement. X evolved into a place where people we care about don't feel safe." And in fact, they made a bigger statement, and they were citing things like Elon Musk. Oh, it's very bad. X is owned by Elon Musk, and Elon Musk is very bad. Diversity, fake news, gender issues, and all sorts of things. So they were trying to make these big virtue signaling statements, trying to endear themselves to the extreme leftist activists that have been inciting so much hatred and violence. They've been trying to play up them. And so they were like, oh no, we're leaving X because X, right? Well, the thing is, this isn't even the first. Hold on, let me bring this up here. This is only one of many issues where they've done things like that. They have an ongoing relationship, Debian does, with an organization known as Outreachy. Now, what is Outreachy, you ask? Well, on the surface, Outreachy does something that seems like it would be kind of good. They line up paid internships, paid like 3-month-long internships for students who want to work on free software projects, right? Doing software development, documentation, testing, all sorts of things. And at first you think, well, that sounds great. Oh yeah, let's get more people involved in open source and free software. Let's get internships going, improve the software, give people experience. Amazing. However, when you really dig into the details, you realize that these internships are only available if you are anyone other than a straight white man or a straight Asian man. They really don't like Chinese and Japanese guys and Korean guys. They don't like you either. Here's a quote from the Debian website, from Debian.org, specifically listing who they would like to be interns at Debian. "We expressly invite applicants who are residents and nationals of the United States of America of any gender," okay, so far so good, "who are," oh, here comes the list, "Black/African American, Hispanic/Latin with an @ sign after it, Native American/American Indian, Alaska Native, Native Hawaiian, or Pacific Islander." Oh, okay. So we're starting to get that. But they also expressly invite applicants who are women, both cis and trans men, and genderqueer people. So basically, anyone but a straight white man. Or like a straight Japanese guy, right? We're all on the same team. We're not allowed, right? I certainly wouldn't be allowed. I would not be allowed to be part of a Debian internship program. And again, virtue signaling, discrimination, and just generally being quite vulgar. That's kind of the thing that runs rampant throughout all of these Debian things. They make a virtue signaling thing, they attack someone else in the process, and they are somewhat discriminatory. But what they're doing here in this latest round is extremely discriminatory. It runs contrary to the very core ideas of open source software. It runs contrary to meritocracy, and they're slandering people all in the same breath. It is horrific. And what's crazy to me is they have not responded in any way to this. They haven't hopped into their mailing list to say, hey guys, I don't think anyone's actually trying to round you, the Debian developer, up into a concentration camp, and actually suggesting that that's happening when it clearly is not, is extraordinarily offensive. Not just that, but saying that and calling people Nazis pointedly, like that person's a Nazi who's trying to round me up in a concentration camp and therefore kill me, is an incitement of violence. It is as a way of stating that that person, it is okay to attack them. It is okay to hurt them. This thing is going on and on and on throughout open source, and Debian is almost the poster child for it nowadays. I mean, we're seeing this from Arch Linux as well. I saw a guy posting about Arch Linux about how they were joking about adding a fash detector to systemd, so that when you run systemd, if it detects that you're fascist, it won't run, right? And according to these same people, if you're a fascist, meaning, you're just a person, right? If you aren't a leftist activist who's actively trying to hurt people, you're a fascist. I don't know. It doesn't make sense. You try and make it make sense. But they say if you're a fascist, you must be bashed. You must be hurt. Punch a Nazi. Bash the fash. And we see that. I mean, people are being murdered, assassination attempts against people for that exact same line of logic. People are being called a fascist or a Nazi, so people go out and try and kill them. People inscribe those same statements on the bullets that they're using to shoot at people. And people within open source are promoting it actively. So what I would like to say is this. Debian needs to do something, and do something fast, because at this exact moment, they're out there promoting violence, attacking people, defaming people, making very, very untrue statements. Their contributors, their representatives with their Debian.org email addresses are doing this. And with the track record that Debian has of not just harboring, but protecting and advocating for child rapists, convicted child rapists, and censoring and banning anyone who simply wants to protect children and women. Holy heavens. And then they have the audacity to go out there and try and incite violence against other people. I mean, it's horrific. Debian needs to act and act now. They need to ban every single person who makes statement like this. Not for a little bit, for life. You're done. You're out of the Debian project. We're going to list you on the website. Here's why we kicked you out. Because you're inciting violence. You're committing libel. You are basically making untrue statements in the name of Debian. And you're making all of open source software and the world of computing a less safe, less diverse, less friendly place to be. And it just needs to be, it can't be tolerated. It cannot be. If Debian is out there right now willing to ban people, and they are, for nothing more than protecting children, they should ban people for all of this and apologize for everything that they've done. And they need to kick out registered sex offenders. They need to kick out people who would make these sorts of awful statements against other human beings. Debian should not stand for it. I'm absolutely fed up with what's going on with the Debian project. Beyond not okay. Beyond not okay. I'm done. Gloves are off. Thank you to the Lunduke Journal subscribers for allowing me to do this sort of coverage, because no other tech news site's going to do it. They're just not going to. You could ask them why. In fact, I encourage people to ask them why. Why? Publicly. Are you, Wired, Verge, Ars, The Register, on and on and on, not covering the horrific actions of groups like the Debian Project? I mean, this is horrible. Off the charts horrible. Why are you not covering this? Why are you covering fluff pieces about open source and not covering the stuff that actually is dramatically impacting the quality of the software and the ability for people to be involved in it and the safety of the people involved in open source software? Why are you not covering this? Ask them. Ask them publicly. Tag them on social media. Ask them. Just say flat out, why do you refuse to cover repeatedly to cover the biggest stories in open source and the rest of big tech? On and on, month. And this is just, it's ridiculous how often this is happening. And ask Debian. Why are you harboring and protecting registered sex offenders? Why are you kicking out people based on their political views? Why are you allowing your representatives to attack, dehumanize, vilify, and incite violence against people just simply because they don't like their political views? Like, why are you allowing that within your project? We need to ask, and we need to hold them all accountable. Again, lunduke.com. Click on all the links. You guys make this possible. Couldn't do it without you. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, nerds and nerdettes across the inner tubes, I do declare and broadcast.